Hey guys, today I'm going to do a video showing you how to replace the oil seal and crankcase sump gasket on this 5-horse Briggs. You look, you can tell it's been leaking for a while here. It's all bent up around there, so we're going to change it out. Now the way I'm going to be doing this, since I want to clean this up a little bit, I'm just going to take the sump off here. And I already got a new gasket for it, so we can put a new gasket on there. Here in a second I'll start it up to show you how much it's leaking here. That way you can see how bad this one is. I'll just run it for a second because I don't want to get oil all over the floor. Now you don't have to pull the sump off to change this. You can get in there with like a seal puller and pull that out and put a new one on. Use a pipe or a seal tool to put a new one on. I'm just going to take it off. It's easier to do that when you take it off, I think. Okay, I just ran it for a second there. You can see already how much is leaked out. I'm going to go ahead and start it up here to show you how much it is leaking. But you get an idea how much it's leaking, so I'm going to clean that oil up there and then we'll tear into it a little bit. Okay, now the first thing you're going to want to do is drain the oil out of it. So we're going to go ahead and loosen the plug here. I got a drain tray sitting in the floor to catch all the oil. That's some pretty nasty oil there. I think it's got a little bit of water in there, having that brownish color to it. So we'll get right back to you here after we get it drained out. Here's what the oil is looking like. Okay, here's a look at the oil. If you see that, it's probably going to be hard to see on the camera. But there's like a whitish, milkyish particles in here, little bubbles. That's actually moisture in the oil. Moisture always looks like makes your oil look milky like it. I've seen a lot worse than that. Okay, I got all the oil drained out. I got a hammer laying underneath here to prop it up a little bit. And always put a rag underneath there because you always have oil come out even if you let it drain for several hours. I'm going to go ahead and start taking these bolts loose. And anytime you take bolts out like this, you want to start here, then take this one off, and just crisscross the way you're taking all the pressure off evenly. Same when you torque them down. So I'll get back to you here as soon as I get all these loosened. Okay, I got all the bolts loosened here. And these are 7/16 drive, by the way. Now, next thing I'm going to do is take these two oil fill caps off. You're going to be hitting on the back of this with a rubber mallet. You don't want to take a chance of cracking them. And if your crankshaft ain't tapered like this one is, it's best to sand it all down, but you can't get in there to sand this one. That's why it's so hard to get off here. Well, let me work with it here a little bit. We'll get right back to you. Alright guys, about a half an hour later here, I finally got this off. What was wrong, there's a few gouges in the crankshaft around here, so I had to take a little grinder all the way around there and smooth that out. The oil slinger fell out in the bottom of the crankcase here. So I won't go ahead and get everything cleaned out here. I'll do a close-up here so you can see how dirty it is, then we'll get that cleaned out. There's a close-up of the crankshaft where I had to grind that all the way around just a little bit. I don't know what that metal ring is. Oh, it's probably off that oil slinger. I'm gonna pull that camshaft out too and take a look at it. Alright guys, about 10 minutes later I got everything cleaned out pretty good. A lot of people ask me what I've been using to clean the inside and outside of these engines. You can see I tried to clean that up a little bit too. Actually, I don't use nothing special really. I just use, on the inside of the crankcase, I like to go over it with a penetrating oil. It seems to grab a hold of all the sludge and build up and everything better. And it's either that or carburetor cleaner what I'd use in there. I generally like to keep carburetor cleaner away from like the connecting rod, because it'll go in there and clean out all the oil pretty much. You don't want that. Also, before I put it back together, I'm going to squirt a little bit of oil down in there so it'll be oiled a little bit better. And another thing I just use a basic degreaser. I'll write in the description there more about the brands of products I use if you're interested in that. But that seems to work pretty good, and you can see I got it cleaned off pretty good. Now, not yet, but eventually I'm going to be painting this motor up. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the... Okay, now I'm going to pop the oil seal out. The way I've always done it is just get up underneath here and pry with a screwdriver. You got to watch your face because it'll pop out and hit you sometimes. I had one hit me in the forehead. There's the old one. You see it's all tore up. No wonder it was leaking. So now I'm going to get a rag here and clean this out a little bit. As long as there ain't no metal grits or pieces of gasket or anything like that in there. See these grooves cut? That's from a chain because this is off an old go-kart. Okay, here's the new oil seal. I'll put a list of parts in here. Put that part number in about right now so you can be able to look it up. I always get aftermarket brand parts. Okay, you want to get it lined up, and you want to get a socket about the same size. Just gently tap it in there. Okay, I had to grind a little bit around the edge there to get it to smooth out right. Now, the trick is to get a socket the same size as the seal. This one's a 1 1/16. Seems to fit it pretty good, as you can see. So you just want to catch it around the edge right there, like that. You don't want to hit this thing real hard. I like to use a rubber mallet, but I'll get a slightly smaller socket here to put on there so I can make sure it's all the way down. And there it is. You just got to make sure it's pretty much flush with that and it's even all the way around. Then the most important thing, when you get ready to put the cover back on, put some oil or STP all over the rubber part on this and the bearing surface too. Because if you don't, you'll burn out the oil seal in just a few seconds of running because it'll heat up from the friction if there's no oil on it. So always put some oil on there first. Alright guys, on this one I took the camshaft and valve tapping set so I can clean everything better. So I'm just going to put some STP all over the valve tappets and put them back in there. In the camshaft, you always want to make sure you get STP or oil all over the lobes. That way they ain't starting dry, and put some on that. And get your timing mark lined up. I'll zoom in on the timing marks so you can see it. And here's your two timing marks lined up. Ignore this is not a timing mark or anything here. And you put your crankcase gasket on, oil sump, whatever you want to call it. Just line it up like that. And I'll put the part number in right here. Okay, here you can see your governor assembly. That piece was out, but just kind of pop it in there like that. There's like a washer on the bottom down there. And you want to put STP all over the shaft that rides on. Now, if you're building like a go-kart engine, which is that's what this is, if your governor's bypassed, you can actually leave all this out because it's not actually an oil slinger, one of these type of engines. Okay, now you want to put STP all over all the bearing surfaces. This does two things. It makes everything go together easier, and makes certain that your engine's not starting up dry, which is very important. And like I was talking about earlier, about putting the oil on that oil seal, what I do, just get a glob of STP or motor oil here and just smear it around all over evenly like this. More the better. And you're ready to put it back together. And get your rubber mallet. Get it all around so it's going on even. Make sure your pegs are lined up right. And there it is. Now you could turn it over right now at this point just to make sure everything's working smooth. Nothing's in a bind. Then you're ready to torque everything down. And go ahead and wipe off any excess STP or oil that's on there. Okay, now at this point we're ready to torque the bolts down. And these are 120 inch-pounds. If you need information on how to set and use torque wrenches, I have another video I put up recently on how to do that. These really aren't that tight. Don't go real tight. It's very important to go in a crisscross pattern like this, so you're putting the pressure on evenly. If you don't do this, you can actually twist the metal and you're going to have problems with not sealing. After you get them all, you want to go back around just to make sure that they click. It's alright to go around like this because you're not actually turning them. You're just double checking that everything's torqued. Well guys, that's about it. Not much to replacing the oil seal. Like I said, you don't always have to separate that. I just think it's easier to do it like that. It don't cost much more because the gasket here is like 80 cents or $1. The seal is just $1 too, so that's a pretty cheap repair really. And I'll put a link below to the company I deal with where I get parts from most of the time. It's a good place to deal from. They're fast and cheap. They have a few different aftermarket brands choose from. You can save a lot of money using that. Well, if you got any questions or comments, leave a comment below or send me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thanks for watching.